I love the customers you hate, the ones who don't pay their bills, who ignore past due notices and dodge phone calls. Hi, I'm Melissa Nash from Checkmark Collections. Do you have these kinds of customers? I'd love to have them. My job is to collect past due money for you, and if I don't recover, you pay nothing. With Checkmark, you've got nothing to lose except your bad debt. Visit checkmarkcollections.com and start getting paid today.
There are two sides to stories and one side to facts.
So how do you like the facts?
This is the Brian Mudd Show.
What a week it's been. Started Sunday afternoon with the second assassination attempt of the former president of the United States at Trump International here in West Palm. And as we are arriving at this Friday, we're now just 46 days away from Election Day. Joining us, our White House correspondent, Jon Decker. Whew. John, tell us about what's going on from your perspective here.
Well, what's going on has to do a lot with the swing states, the battleground states. We saw both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris this past week in those battleground states. In fact, Donald Trump tomorrow will be in North Carolina. That is a state that I heard at the RNC when Joe Biden was at the top of the ticket. We don't even need to go there. There's no reason to spend money in North Carolina. And now that's a different case with Kamala Harris as the standard bearer for Democrats. Donald Trump will be in Wilmington, North Carolina tomorrow, and he's made quite a few trips to the Tar Heel state over the course of the past few weeks.
We have broadly seen that, if you take a look at the polling that's come out, not really much movement coming out of the debate. Which, really is kind of interesting in a lot of different respects, as people there weren't many undecided voters going in. Still aren't a whole lot of undecided voters coming out. So little moves matter. And you talk about a state like North Carolina, there are a couple of things contextually that I think are interesting. And one of the reasons you have such a focus in North Carolina, they're one of the states that's voting now. So there was a little bit of a delay in the ballots being mailed out because of RFK Jr. getting struck from the ballot. But you do have actual voting that is taking place in North Carolina with ballots being sent out. So timing factors in. Pennsylvania, another huge state that's involved. You got Virginia in the mix now among some of the other states where you have voting. You have Trump running well ahead of where he was 4 years ago, objectively. But one of the things about North Carolina, he only won that state by just over 1 point. And the polls there showed effectively a tied race going into 2020, pretty similar in the polls in 2016. So in other words, it isn't like that was a especially comfortable state in his prior two elections.
Yeah, look, it's a state that Donald Trump won in both 2016 and in 2020. That's the state that has always been, essentially the reach state for Democrats in presidential elections. Democrats haven't won North Carolina since 2008, so you'd have to go back quite a few election cycles. I think that, it doesn't help matters that the candidate that Republicans have put forward as their nominee for governor is now under fire for things that he may have said. It's been reported online. Already he was a troubling candidate with things that he said on the record. And so does that problem, essentially hurt Donald Trump in any way? I don't know. It's difficult to say. I think that for the most part, people can separate different races. That's why ticket splitting is so common all across the country.
No doubt. Meanwhile, what we are continuing to see is that Trump is running the best he ever has in states at this stage in the race, in states like Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, and Michigan in particular. So, as we have this conversation about, hey, Harris is looking at North Carolina being in play, the old blue wall states, even in the polls that show Harris leading, Trump's never performed better than he is right now.
Well, I guess it really depends what polls you look at.
No, it doesn't. It actually doesn't. If you take a look at the Real Clear Politics average, there is no question that in an aggregate of the polls, Trump is performing better at this time than he had in 2020 or 2016 in those states.
Well, I'll take your word for it, Brian. I trust you on those things. If that's the case, that's the case. But despite the fact that that may be where Donald Trump is right now in this stage of the race, less than 50 days to go until the presidential election. You can't take anything for granted. I mean, as we saw during the summer, when you're talking about, just a matter of weeks, so much can happen over the course of the next few weeks that can change the dynamics of this race. And as you point out, there are so few people out there who would describe themselves to a pollster as undecided or persuadable. And that's the difficult thing for both campaigns, is to reach out to those very few voters who typically decide who wins in presidential elections.
Yeah, no doubt. And we will continue to follow this, of course, very closely, and always appreciate the update and the time.